Hi again folks, how yous all doing? Well, what on earth have I got myself into here? This is a Jouef TGV that was sent to me by Trevor on behalf of his son Chris. Chris bought this recently, but Trevor says it doesn't run at all well. Well, let's turn on the power and see what happens. Yeah, it's not very happy at all. Let's shove it into the shed and we'll see what's up. We'll see if we can back it in. Go on, you can do it. Right, here we go with a Jouef TGV. Something different anyway. So yeah, never looked at one of these before, and you maybe heard it making a terrible screeching sound when I backed it along the test track there. Yeah, I'll be very interested to get a look at the motor in this. Making a horrible sound and not running too well. I've got a funny feeling it's going to be a noisy thing anyway, no matter what I do. So this is a Jouef model, made in France. Fabriqué en France. HO scale, of course. It's nice to work in something different. Quite like the colour scheme on this actually. Orange and grey is quite nice. So yeah, we'll get a look at this, but as I say, I would, I'm very sceptical if this is going to be, if it's going to be possible to make this thing run quietly. We shall see. We've got a screw here and a screw there that will undo, and see if it just pops open nicely or if we've got any clippy nonsense. Right. It does indeed just lift off. That's good. So it would have had a light at the front, but there's no bulb in it. Oh my word. So it's a 5-pole armature. Couple of gears there. Yeah, I don't think there's an awful lot could really be done with this, to be honest. How does it come out? Oops. Alright, okay, put that to one side. There's like a metal pin goes through that the bogie is kind of pivoting on. I'm not entirely convinced that trying to take it all apart would be a good idea, to be honest. There's traction tyres on all the drive wheels, drive gears there, which appear to be okay. So that gear there engages with that gear, which I think is turning a little drive shaft with, there must be a gear on the other end as well. You can maybe just see the metal pin running through that the motor bogie pivots on. Let's have a wee fiddle with this. So if that's opened up, yeah, that gets the motor out. There's a wire off. And this wire's broken as well. Jings. Yeah, there's quite a bit of vibration in that motor. We'll get some oil into the bearing there. Some into that rear bearing. Yeah, doesn't really make much difference. I'd really like to get into this to be able to get some grease into these gears, but gee whiz. Okay, it's not obvious how these clips come undone, and I really don't want to break this. So I'm going to try and get some lubrication into this as best I can. I think possibly just some gear oil into there. Now, I'm not going to try and force this open. There's too much risk of breaking it, and then we'd be in a bad place. Sometimes you've got to exercise a little bit of judgment in these things, and yeah, we're not going to open that up. I mean, the motor runs fine. I've lubricated it. We'll reconnect up these wires. I mean, they just snapped away, very easily. So they were clearly, about to go. So these wires are just single core wires. That's why they snap so easily. So I'll replace them. So there's pickups in these 4 wheels, but there's no pickups in those wheels. And nothing from any of the other cars in this. So yeah, it's not the best. Not the best at all. But we'll see. So yeah, the wires that are on it are just these single core wires which break very easily. The wires I use have, multiple finer cores, which makes the wires much more supple, and they don't break anywhere near as easily. So, twist that on. Get some solder onto them. People don't like me doing that. Put this back in. That about there. And that one about there. I don't need to shrink it, it's just there to prevent a short. Just going to remove the old solder from the motor because I think there's maybe holes in these terminals. Just melt the solder. Yep, there is. Right, so now we can put the wire through the hole. It's always better when wires go through holes in terminals like this. Just makes the join much better, a bit more secure. There we go. No, that's not wanting to come out. What I'm going to do is give these axles a good scoosh. See, there's quite a bit of dirt coming out of them. In the hope that that cleans out the pickups. So yeah, I mean the model's very toyish, I have to say. Bit of fluffage in there. It's not exactly top quality. I'll give these wheels a bit of a clean. So I think it's going to be a noisy runner no matter what. Let's pop this weight back in. We'll see if this goes. Okay, power on. Oh, that's not too bad. What quieter in reverse. It's pulling about 150 milliamps. Okay, this is actually next day. I'd put all this back together thinking there's probably not much more I can do with it. But when I ran it on the layout, yeah, it was definitely a lot quieter running in reverse, and it seemed to struggle a bit going round the corners. It was making a kind of a high-pitched noise going round the corners, like the motor was under a bit of stress. So I've taken it apart again, and I've managed to get that motor bogie apart, just to let you see. So I managed to get this out from the locomotive just by pulling that little rod out. That dropped the motor bogie out of the locomotive, and then I fiddled about with those clips and I got this apart. It was, it's not an easy thing to undo. You can see those clips there, they're pretty brutal. But I've got this open, so I can clean it all out. And what I would like to do is that. Just swap the wheels over. That's really what I wanted to be able to do, because sometimes that can, if you've got an issue where a model's running better in one direction than the other, if you've got a little motor bogie like this, sometimes just swapping the two axles around can sort that. So we'll see, but we'll give this a good clean out and get some fresh lubrication in there. You can see it's all pretty crudely put together. That just kind of sits in there, and this end kind of engages with the little hole there. But yeah, it's not exactly precision engineering. But we'll give it all a good scoosh out and a good clean up. At least I'm going to have the satisfaction of knowing I've done absolutely everything I can for this. It was just really bugging me not being able to get into the gears properly. So, quite pleased I did. But yeah, a real fiddle getting into it. Yeah, some pretty sticky, gunky stuff in there. We'll get the manky brush onto that. Give this a good clean out. Kind of looks like this has had moly grease in it. We'll get a load of silicone grease in here. So I'm going to dollop a load of that on it. Whether or not this makes any difference to the running, well, we'll find out. But at least I've tried. Slowing down and screeching on curves, it's maybe just, the poor quality of the model. There's maybe not an awful lot we can do, but we shall see. So that'll sit on there. More grease in here. And then we clip this back together. Like that. Clips together nice and easily. But I certainly don't want to be opening that up again. Basically what I did to get this open was shove the screwdriver down in the wee hole there and got another screwdriver in to try and lever the black plastic and the grey plastic parts apart and just, worked that clip. And I felt it give and managed to stick a screwdriver to keep the two plastic parts apart while I worked on the other clip, and I got one side out, did the same in the other end, and it just popped apart. It's entirely possible that Zhuev have a tool for doing that. I don't know, but it's it's clearly not meant to come apart, I don't think. But I've been able to get in there and get it greased up. So let's see if we can get it back in. Push it in. Come on, there you go. There we go. So it's just a question of just unclipping that little rod, and the motor bogie comes out. I had to adjust the wires a wee bit because I noticed as the motor bogie was turning, the wires were hitting this gear. I desoldered the wires and resoldered them back on onto the outsides of the terminals, and I've moved these terminals so they're facing forwards. It should just minimise the risk of the wires hitting the gear. Right, that's not the right way around, that's it. Put that in. Like so. So you can see there's little slots there and there that the wires are supposed to sit in, but that restricts the movement of the wires and the movement of the bogie, and actually increases the chance of the wires hitting that gear. And it was causing a horrible screeching sound when that happened. So I've rejigged it to make sure that the wires don't hit the gear, and I'm not using those little slots. Let the wires move freely and they won't hit the gear. So when this is, when the body's on, the wires are moving with the bogie and they won't hit the gear. Right, let's give this a shot. Okay, let's see how this runs. I think that might be better going forwards now than it is in reverse. So swapping those axles has maybe done the trick. Okay, there's nothing else I can do to this. Let's pull it out of the shed. So there we go, that's this Zhuef TGV running as well as it can be expected to, I think. Certainly doesn't seem to have any real pickup issues, which I thought it might do, but it's a wee bit noisy. Just crude gearing and a low quality motor, I think. It does have a wee bit of slowdown on the curves at times, which I think is due to a lack of torque, but it's certainly not the only locomotive to suffer that problem. I'm glad I persevered with getting that motor bogie apart, because swapping the drive axles over I think has certainly helped it run better in a forwards direction, and it did need a good scoosh out and some fresh lubrication. So that and some new wiring and a general cleanup has got it running. Another problem this has is that the coaches are very prone to derailing, partly due to fairly shallow flanges on the wheels, and partly because the couplings to the locomotives tend to lift the coaches a tiny wee bit. And just before I packed this away, I managed to find a wee bulb. I wished I'd found it before doing the running session, but never mind. But always fun to work on something a little different. I shall get this packed up and sent back to Trevor and Chris. Catch yous later, folks.